Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. I'm so excited to have such an industry leader, Jessica Higdon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those of you who aren't familiar with you?
Yeah, so I started in network marketing when I was 21 years old, and I was just finishing up college. I had a marketing degree. I was going to school full time at that time, and I was also working full time. And over the weekends, I was trying to start my own makeup business and do makeup things on the side because I was actually working at a makeup counter at a department store full time. So I pretty much had about 90 hours a week already committed to other things when a home business fell into my lap. And so wasn't really planning on building it big time or doing much with it. And I came into work one day, I was 21 at the time, or I was turning 21 almost, and really excited about the path that I was taking with the company and thinking that I would be, the next in line for a management position. And I came into work one day and they gave me a terrible annual review because I was late a Tuesday ago or 2 Tuesdays ago or something like that. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was shocked because I'd done so much for the company and everything. And I was shocked because I had just organized this huge event. I had brought a bunch of women into the store to buy a bunch of product, and I didn't think that would be the case for my annual review. But what I realized later is that my manager thought that I would be taking his job, so he decided to just push me down. So at that point, long story short, it really made me make the decision to pursue the home business. And I, for 6 months, didn't sign up a single person, which was really frustrating. And then I turned to social media. I found some people that had built their businesses on social media and figured out some ways that worked for me and tweaked it. And so within 18 months, I had my first $10,000 month there. And then I went on to be the number one female income earner of that company by the time I was 23 years old. And then after that, a lot of people were asking me, how did I do it? How did I, do it through social media and start prospecting and everything on there? And I created some courses to help people with that. And those courses, which I had no idea there was a need in the marketplace for something like that, or so much of a need, I should say. I still pinch myself when I say this, but those courses have grossed each over $1 million in revenue, and it's just been incredible, the response. And since then, my husband and I have a training and coaching business in the home business profession, and it's just skyrocketed, and so many people have seen such great results from that. We just train all over the world now. And we actually did sell our position for our network marketing company because, we had a lot of 6 and 7 figure clients, and it was just a conflict of interest. But we're now just full-time trainers for the profession. And had you told me 7 or 8 years ago that I'd be saying this and talking to you about all these things, I would have told you you're nuts. So it's just crazy what's happened, and we're very blessed, and it's been an exciting journey. So
I love your story for a couple of reasons. And, the main one is that by applying new techniques and learning that anyone can get there. So I think that you started off without the experience, but you were willing to learn, and I'm sure coachable, after a bunch of months added up and you weren't getting the results that you wanted, you were kind of like, okay, what else is there? And I think, everyone in this profession reaches that point at some point. They're like, okay, this hasn't been my profession before, but if I'm going to treat it like a profession, then I need to learn some new skills.
totally, 100%.
But I think it's encouraging to listen to, because I think that it demonstrates by applying new things, you can get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Many people quit after like 3 weeks, let alone 6 months. So, I mean, the one thing that really kept me going is I realized that, I had some successful people in my family, and I watched what they had done, with traditional business and how hard it was for them. And, I just look at everything worth doing and every person that's actually become successful. And there's a reason that there's a select percentage of them in the world, a small percentage of them in the world. It's because anything worth doing isn't just easy. And that's what makes it worth it. If everybody in the world was able to become successful and had the motivation and the drive, and it was super easy, and you just did this and that, and it poof, then it wouldn't be as special, and it wouldn't make any difference to you in your life. So, there's a reason that it's hard, and it makes it worth it. And it is hard. Anything worth doing, is going to take some effort, and you're going to have ups and downs, and there's a lot of downs, but there's also the ups make it so worth it. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you have the ability to have total time freedom with your husband and your family. And, that's getting there, but you went through those hard times and applied a new set of knowledge to it. And now you're able to teach that, which is why we have you here today. And since you mentioned social media marketing is really the avenue that you pursued yourself and found success with and now are teaching, I'd love to just open it up and just share on what platform do you recommend? I mean, there's so many. There's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Periscope. So there's so many platforms, and that can be overwhelming in and of itself for someone just starting. So where would you recommend someone to start?
Well, I personally started on Facebook, and I still recommend Facebook. I mean, they are doing and will continue to do everything in their power to be the superpower of social media. Most people spend their time on there more so than any other social media site, except for, now Snapchat is kind of taking over for the millennials and the younger generation. I personally, I'm not a big Snapchatter, but I know a lot of people that are recruiting on there. But, less so. That personally, if you haven't mastered Facebook, I highly recommend doing that first. A lot of people think that you have to, be on a certain one, or you have to master all of them or do everything. And that's not the case at all. There's different things that'll work for you that maybe didn't work for me. And I know plenty of people that have had massive success on every single one of those platforms. It just depends on what works for you. But I say Facebook because it's the monster, and if you're not on there and really using it to your advantage, then that would be where I would start. And then once you get the hang of one and you're really doing well and things are rocking and rolling over there, then maybe you can start looking at other platforms and looking at another avenue and go there and start exploring, and slowly but surely get through as many as you want, but you don't have to run at them all at once. So if there were the top ones that I would recommend at this point are Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I think those are phenomenal platforms for recruiting. And now that Facebook owns Instagram, there's going to be a lot more stuff coming out there for sure.
That's great. I think it even changes the way advertising goes when you decide to make that transition into having a real business and promoting it like such. Then you can actually access two major platforms that over 1 billion people are hanging out to access and put your ad directly in front of them.
Absolutely.
But if people aren't at the place of advertising on Facebook and they do want to use that platform first and they want to implement maybe, let's say, like 3 actionable steps to give it a start. Like they don't even know where to start as far as implementing Facebook as their primary for network marketing. What 3 steps would you have them take?
So first, I would absolutely get your images and your branding in order. People, they overlook this way too much. They think that it's not a big deal to have professional photos on there and good imagery and everything. It's a huge deal. Because people that don't know you, they're going to judge you by your first impression, and your profile and your branding is your first impression. So if you don't have those things in order, then, you know, I'm not saying you can't create success. It's just going to be harder for you. So I would absolutely have, you know, a nice image of you smiling, not like a professional headshot, that's not what I'm saying, but just some really high quality image. You know, you don't have to go get professional photos. The iPhone takes perfect pictures. You know, get a nice high quality image on there. Get a banner that shows your lifestyle. The things that you post should be visually intriguing. So just get those things in order, because that is the first thing somebody's going to look at and see when they're thinking about working with you. Secondly, I would do a Facebook Live, because it is so hot right now. And some of you, your hearts are beating out of your chest like, oh my God, do a Facebook Live? No, I can't do video. And I get it. I totally get it. But that is why some people are doing really, really well and some people aren't, because they're pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. And live video is so scary for a lot of people because it's live, it's raw, which is what people want anyway, so go for it. But a lot of people won't do it because it's live and it's raw and you can't do retakes and things like that. So you will stand above your competition. You'll increase your reach much faster, because Facebook is just giving lives a ton of reach right now. And people love it. They love it. They feel connected to you. And it's something that will get you a lot more sales and a lot more connections and new people on your page or your profile in the long run. Mm-hmm. So that's the second thing I would recommend. And what do you say in there? I would just introduce yourself. Ask, very simple. This isn't like a 15-minute live. This can be, you know, 3 to 5 minutes. Introduce yourself, ask a question, provide an answer to that question or some type of tip, and then do a call to action at the end of some kind, basically telling people what you want them to do. So for instance, that could be, you know, hi, my name's Jessica Higdon, and do you ever struggle with the overwhelming amount of social media training out there and you just don't know where to start? Well, today I'm going to be sharing with you your very first step to start on social media, and that is have a great profile image or whatever the case may be. And then I'd say, and if you enjoyed this tip, please share this. Feel free to reach out to me in Messenger. I check each and every message personally. That's something that I highly recommend saying. If you don't have a website or an email or somewhere for people to go, when you say you check each and every message personally, people feel like, number one, the fact that you have to say that means that you're important. So even if you only get one message a day, hey, say it anyway. It's not a big deal. And number two, people are like, oh, she's actually going to read my message and respond to me. That's pretty cool. So that's a great thing to say if you want people to message you, but you could send them your website, send them wherever, but this is not where you share about your product or about your business opportunity or anything like that. You're just getting used to giving tips and getting people to know, like, and trust you. And then thirdly, my third tip overall for social media is to actually connect with those people and reach out to them and be interactive on your social media page. Too many of us are just refreshing our screens, trying to see how many people liked our stuff or commented or shared it, and then we do nothing with it. Those are all leads. They're all leads. A lead doesn't have to come through a special fancy funnel. A lead is somebody that takes an interest in what you're doing. So reaching out to them and creating a relationship is something that I highly recommend if you're at the point in your business where you can do that. You know, there comes a time where you actually have a great problem, and that's that you have too many people reaching out to you and you can't personally reach out and create that relationship and everything. But that is definitely not where you start. So it's good to create that when you're starting, and it gives you a higher ratio of recruits too.
So you're saying the people that just like your video or like your post, you're saying send them a personal message?
Absolutely, if you can. Now, Facebook is a little weird, right? So sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but do the best you can. Too many people get caught up on the technology part of it. And, when I teach to reach out to people, they'll say, well, you told me to reach out to 6 and I can only reach out to 5 and I don't know what to do. And Facebook gave me this message. It's like, calm down. It's okay. If you run into that problem, just step back. There's always Google, right? And you can Google the problem you're having, and I'm sure a million solutions will come up because Facebook is ever changing. It's always changing its policies and its algorithms and all that stuff. So if that comes up, don't worry about it. Just focus on building your network as much as you can each and every day.
Mm-hmm. I love that advice. And I also love the advice about the Facebook Lives. I have to admit, I was someone who threw up both feet in the sand to resist doing Facebook Live because, I'm typically pretty introverted. And doing these interviews, I get to be in my house and where I'm comfortable. But doing Facebook Lives is really a different animal. But once you click record, you just have a conversation with one person, just the perfect person that you'd love to draw in. So I love that advice on, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, that's great advice for sure. You're talking to one person.
Yeah. So you and your husband then took what you knew and built your own brand and blog and resource, like a training resource for this industry. And built this massive resource for people, basically. And what would you have for advice? People want to brand and blog and do all of that alongside of their own opportunity. Would you recommend it when they're just starting out? And also, like, where does that transition? Like, how long would it take them to become successful at building their own brand and blog?
Well, it varies, right? I can't tell you it'll be 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years. However long it takes, my answer is who cares? Because what's the alternative? But typically we see that it takes a good 12 months of commitment to really see a big change in your business, or that shift where you start to actually get leads coming in every day. People know who you are, talking to people every day that know you and want to hear from you versus, are telling you it's a pyramid, right? So that shift usually takes a solid 12 months, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, but that's what we've seen is 12 months of commitment there. When you're first starting out, I won't tell you that you shouldn't do it, because I definitely think it's important to have a network that's branded to you, because like my husband says, wherever you go, there you are. So whatever happens in your business life or in your personal life or what have you, having a network of people that stand behind you and that you provide value for, I think is super important. So I think you can start when you're first starting out a blog or start branding and things like that. However, if you're a terrible person at time management, then you probably shouldn't, because until you start making some money and get your business off the ground and running, and then take that money that you're making and reinvest it into your business, reinvest it into branding and things like that. But I usually, when people first start out, don't like them to go even further and further in the hole if they're not good at time management, because then it won't happen anyway. Mm-hmm. What you should do is build it in the background, take 30 minutes a day or whatever to put out your content, start planning your blogging and building your website and things like that. And then the rest of the time, you're actively going out and prospecting people and reaching out to people and creating relationships and getting them into your business and going through the numbers, pretty much the traditional way of marketing. However, you can do that on social media now, which makes things 10 times easier than they were, 30 years ago. So I do think you can start when you're just beginning. And I think it's smart if you know how to manage your time. And I do think that 12 months is probably the best time frame for you to plan for to
Mm-hmm.
start at least seeing some traction.
I think that's great. And does that require them to blog once a day or, a couple times a week, or how frequently would you be
Well,
able
that's
to
up to
see
you
that?
and your time. Ray will say once a day, which Ray is really the expert at blogging. That's my husband. And he'll say once a day because he says, and this is a great argument, he says that, well, if you aren't, then your competition will be. So if people are looking for content every single day, and if they don't find it from you, they're going to go to your competition, right? So that's a great piece of advice there. However, if you can't do it once a day, or a lot of us are very busy, then after a while it does get easier. So it takes you like 20 minutes. So there's not a big excuse there. But if you are at least consistent with how often you're doing it, Google likes that. Social media likes that. The algorithms with Google, they really like that you're just consistent with what you do. So if you do, 2 times a week or 3 times a week, and you sustain that for a year or 6 months or whatever, then they're going to be more apt to show your stuff versus somebody else's who just blogged, 2 times a week for 3 weeks, and then they took 3 months off and then they started again. So just be consistent with whatever you're going to do. And it's impossible for you to do that and not see some kind of results.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. So you did a training recently on LinkedIn. And that's just another platform that's available. But this one is kind of special because I think that more professional people are hanging out there.
Sure.
Versus, some of the other platforms. So it's a difference in who you attract if you are, maintaining that platform versus another one. Aside from having your profile set up correctly and everything, what's 3 steps that you would recommend on that platform if we were to build there?
I would say utilizing groups, because groups on LinkedIn are really fascinating. I mean, groups on Facebook can be good if you manage them properly. However, as a lot of us know, they can also be really spammy and nobody pays attention to what's in there anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely not 100% the case. I mean, there are some great groups, but, for the most part, if you're going to just be a part of a group versus own a group and actually manage a group and make sure it's done properly and kick out the spammers, that's a lot of work. So on LinkedIn, you can just go into groups and start up conversations and start posting content, and people actually look at it and they actually listen to you. And that's pretty cool, because there's some groups on there with millions of people in them, and that's traffic all to you. So that's one tip. Also, there's huge value on LinkedIn that nobody really pays attention to. And that's all the automated messaging going on out there. If you open your LinkedIn inbox of messages, you will see probably hundreds of people. I know in mine there are. I don't know about yours, but yeah, people that are messaging you an automated message. And people just write that off thinking, oh, they aren't really personally reaching out to me, so whatever, I'm not going to talk to them. But if you're like the one person in 1,000 that responds to them because they sent out that message, right, to 1,000 people and got no responses but you all of a sudden are like the golden child in their eyes, and they want to talk to you, and they will listen to pretty much anything that you have to say. So I would be going through there, and this is actually how I found some international teammates. I would go through there and just respond. Check out their profiles. Check out what they're all about. You'll actually be shocked when you see some of them are, professional recruiters. Some of them are investors. Some of them, so you'll be shocked at what you see if you actually do some digging and just strike up a conversation. Try and get them onto, Skype or the phone or some platform where you can see how you can be mutually beneficial for each other. It's amazing what happens by making those connections through LinkedIn, and how many people, not only they might not only be a prospect for your business, but the people that they know. So I find that that's really valuable. And then third, I would say if you're wanting to build an international team, LinkedIn is a great place for that, because there's a lot of influencers on there. And if you find one in an area that you want to build, then if that person does go to work with you, it can be a really good thing for you and your team.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. And I kind of want to go back to number 2. And, how would your response look? I know that there's a bunch of pre-printed messages. We all get them. Like, you go on there, there's a lot in your mailbox, and you're like, oh, that's overwhelming. But what's a typical response that you would get to move it to the next step to be able to have a Skype meeting with them?
So that's why I said to look at their profile, because if you just respond with, thanks for thinking of me, or no, I'm not interested, then that's cool. I mean, they're glad they got a response. Don't get me wrong. They'll probably respond to you, which is more than I can say on Facebook. A lot of times it's harder, but you should be doing it because it's very, very important. But that's why I said to look at their profile, because I would respond with something specific to them. And so, for instance, I shared this on the webinar. One guy, he reached out to me, something about his business, or it was very just automated. You could tell, very spammy. And I just responded. I saw that on his profile, it said that he was a professional recruiter. And that, obviously, building a team, that intrigued me. I didn't know if that was for a corporation or what that meant. So I responded and just said, hey, thanks so much for thinking of me. By the way, I checked out your profile. How long have you been a recruiter? That's really interesting. And then from there, we started talking back and forth. He told me a little bit about what he did. And I shared, that I was actually looking to expand in his area. And I would love to, chat and see if there's any way we can mutually benefit each other. And we did. And I shared this on the webinar, but he actually didn't end up joining my business, but refer me to someone who did. So I would just really make it personal in everything that you do at this point, especially if you're a beginner. You want to really take an interest in others and see how you can solve their problem versus just trying to, get the sale.
I love that, because I think it's easy to lead with just like how amazing your product is or the opportunity or that type of thing. But when you're actually seeking what their goals are, it changes the conversation, and it makes you feel less pitchy or salesy too, because you're actually getting into someone else's goals and seeing if you can help them meet it.
Totally. Absolutely.
Awesome. So if you were to do it all over again, if you were to start as a brand new network marketer with all the experience that you have, what would you do differently, or what would you do to have immediate success?
Oh, that's such a good question. I definitely made a lot of mistakes. That's for sure. What would I do differently? I would still use social media to build my team. So I don't think that I would do anything differently there. What I would do a better job of, that I see really working for people, is using social media to have better team training systems, because social media connects everybody, and internationally, locally, it doesn't matter. It connects everybody, and everybody feels like they're part of a team if you do it right. And so I probably would have started that a lot earlier. In our last company, we really had an amazing team Facebook group. It was just for the team. That was where the training was, where the recognition was. That thing ran itself, and in turn, it duplicated itself because so many people were so involved in that culture and that team bond. And so I guess if I had to do it over again, I just would have started that a lot earlier and not worried about, whether I felt like a leader or not. If you have one person on your team, then you are ready to start leading by example. Mm-hmm. And I think that creating some type of group or some type of social media area that your team can come together and creating that culture as early on as possible is so important. And in turn, I see a lot of leaders that their teams are starting to grow, but they can't handle it because everybody's coming to them, asking them questions and leaning on them for the duplication and things. And to a degree, you need to have that. But if you teach from the beginning that, hey, if you have a question, you ask it in the group first, or you go to the group team members and you find the answer. If there's a training going on and it's your business, it's your job to post that in the group for your people. And you need to recognize as many people as you can, make them feel special in that group. Then if you train that in the culture and everything, you duplicate faster and it makes it easier on everyone, including yourself.
I love that because it's totally using a resource that's free, like Facebook groups, to really build a community. And that's kind of the sticky glue of, having people stay and not feel alone and not feel like, oh, my mentor, my upline didn't train me and that type of thing. So it kind of eliminates that. With that, how were you able to, have it gain traction from like a couple of people? Sometimes it's easy for people to go crickets in that type of group. They're not really sure what to post or that type of thing. Like, how did you create the sense of community with it?
It kind of happened by accident, but now I see how there was a strategic process involved, really. But from the beginning, when somebody came on board, there was a set of steps that they had to take in that group. And that was to announce themselves, say, hey, I'm new to the team, excited to be here. They had to watch the video. So we had, you can pin posts to the top of the group. So we had a video that shared all about the culture of this group and this team and shared what your next steps are entering the group and what you're supposed to do. And every new person that came on board, we told them to go through this group experience. And also they do the same thing for their teams because it's right there in that video to explain everything for them. Mm-hmm. So from there, it just, people saw people posting, hey, welcome so-and-so to the team. So excited to have you. And people started posting team calls in there. And every time there was a training, we never had to post anything. If there was a question, if there was a call going on, anything, somebody was on it like that because they knew the culture going in and they liked it. They loved it. So it wasn't just to make things easier on us, that made things easier on everyone because it was just a community within that. So I think the key is instilling that from the beginning when you bring someone on.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And it builds a tighter team, more group support. It's not really, pitching teammates as competition or anything like that. Because like the industry itself can get a little competitive.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's hard to find the true belief of like really like one team. So I think that by you fostering that, then it's really paving the way for them, and they're adding people into that who also believe that, and their experience is going to be completely different. I'm sure even experienced network marketers coming into an environment like that is like, oh my, like, wow, there's supportive people here. There's people cheering me on. Instead of them just being in their house like, okay, I'm a network marketer, how do I do this?
Absolutely. And we had that. We had beginners from experienced networkers come in there and be like, whoa, this is cool, So yeah, no, that's a really good point. And it did bring people together. And we had a lot of people that were sidelined on our team doing 3-way calls for the other people. So
that's great.
Yeah. So it was really awesome.
And I think that's a good point to expound upon, because what people don't really picture is that, if that person happens to be underneath them or not, like the volume will still result as a benefit in their business center. So it's just, and also if the company is doing well,
Sure.
you stand a better chance of doing well. So it's not just about like, oh, do you affect my income or not? It's like, how can I support you? And actually, that's what leadership is. It's becoming that. So I think you fostered a great environment for people.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, obviously there's a balance, right? You can't do three-way calls for someone else's team all day and not produce on your own team.
Right.
But it is that sense of, we are one big team in this industry as a whole, really. And it's important to remember that, because when that gets away from us, that's when, the industry gets a bad name. And so we want to protect that as a whole and just do everything we possibly can in our power to make this legitimate and have a good name.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I really appreciate what you and your husband are putting out in the industry. It's really, paving the way for a lot of people who, are all the way from beginner to experienced, and anyone who wants to better themselves and learn more about marketing. Just even if they're not in network marketing, they could learn about marketing from the things that you teach. So
thank you.
Really appreciate it. I really appreciate you joining us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
So if someone wanted to reach out, how do they find you?
You can go to my website. It's jessicahigdon.com, or you can connect with me on my fan page, which is just facebook.com/Jessica Higdon page. Either one will connect you with me, and would look forward to hearing you.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.